The galaxy was quiet now, after many long years of war. The stars had seen destruction, fire, and fear, but now they were calm again. Great empires like the Zarn and the Valari had finally signed peace. Their armies were tired, their fleets damaged, and their people broken, so a treaty was made, and everyone agreed to stop fighting. Trade ships began moving again, traveling between stars without fear. Small colonies that were once afraid of being attacked started to grow again, the Galactic. Concord, a group of leaders from every major planet, met to keep peace. They made rules, set borders, and promised to punish anyone who started another war. Everyone wanted peace, even if it was not perfect. Then, a strange signal was heard in the outer rim. It was old, using a frequency no one had used in 100 years. The signal came from a dead zone near a broken moon. The council thought it was just an echo, maybe from some crashed ship, but one person did not agree. Commander Lyra of the Zenter Navy listened carefully. She was not like the other officers who liked to sit in safe chairs. She had fought in the war and had lost friends she trusted. Her instincts, and they were telling her that something was wrong. So she took her small ship, the Starblade, and went to find the source of the signal. When she arrived near the broken moon, she found something shocking. It was a massive ship, dark and silent, floating like a ghost. The hull was old, yet the engines were warm. The ship was not in any record, but it carried a symbol she had only seen in very old data files, an Earth flag. Lyra's eyes widened. Earth was a forgotten name, a planet that had vanished from the galaxy a long time ago. Some said it had destroyed itself. Others said it went into hiding, but no one had seen an Earth ship in more than a century. And yet here one was, not just any ship, but a warship inside the ship. In the command center deep within its core, a human opened his eyes. Jack Rayner slowly woke up from cryosleep. His muscles were stiff and his mind was foggy, but one thing was clear: he was still a soldier. He looked around and saw the familiar walls of the Resolute. Jack checked the time and froze. He had been asleep for far longer than planned. The ship's AI spoke softly, informing him of the damage, the years past, and the status of the mission. His last memory was launching into deep space to fight the Zarn. Now he was awake, and the war might still be going. To Jack, nothing had changed. The Zarn were the enemy, and peace was just a trick. He had been trained to finish missions, and the mission was not over. So he walked to the command console, powered up the main systems, and ordered a full scan of nearby space. Lyra's ship picked up movement. The strange vessel was powering up. Her heart beat faster as lights began to shine on the black hull. Then the weapons came online, ancient but deadly. She tried to send a message, a peaceful one. But there was no reply. Jack saw the small ship nearby. To him, it looked like a scout, probably from the Zarn. He ordered the AI to prepare for battle. The Resolute was one of the last dreadnoughts Earth had built before it disappeared. It carried weapons too powerful for most fleets to face. The Council received Lyra's report, but did not take it seriously. Some laughed, saying it was just an old satellite. Others warned not to poke a sleeping beast. But by the time they decided to send help, it was too late. Jack had cloaked the ship and vanished from sensors. He didn't know he had woken up in a time of peace. He didn't know the enemy had already surrendered decades ago. All he knew was war, and he was ready to fight it again. The galaxy was about to change, and it didn't even know it yet, because the war had ended for everyone except Jack Rayner, and he had just woken up. Jack Rayner stood inside the command center of the Resolute. Blinking at the screens around him, everything was quiet, but the ship was waking up just like him. One by one, systems came online, lights flickered, engines warmed, and weapon arrays began their self-checks. He reached out and touched the cold metal of the console. It felt familiar, like an old friend waiting for him. The AI voice, calm and smooth, reported in mission status incomplete, enemy presence unknown. Fleet support, lost contact. Jack rubbed his forehead, trying to understand. How could so much time have passed? He looked at the log files. They were damaged, corrupted. But one thing was clear. Earth had gone silent. He checked the outer scanners again. There was one small ship nearby, floating with shields up but weapons off. He didn't know who it belonged to, but he didn't trust it. His last orders were clear. Earth forces were to engage any Zarn forces on site. He had no idea the XARN had already signed peace agreements. He activated a defense field around the Resolute. In his mind, the war never ended. He believed the mission was still active, and enemies were everywhere. He could not afford to trust anyone, not yet. Commander Lyra watched from her ship. Her heart was racing. She tried again to contact the strange warship. But nothing worked. She sent peace codes, old treaty symbols, even audio recordings of Galactic Concord leaders. No reply. She didn't know what the human was thinking, but she could tell he was preparing for battle. The lights on the hull were shifting, weapons were aligning, and strange energy readings were spreading from the center of the ship. Lyra sent a warning to the nearest Galactic patrol. She told them this ship was not just old tech, it was powerful, and whoever was inside was acting on war instincts. She asked them to wait, to let her try one last time. Inside the Resolute, Jack stood in the war room, looking at old maps, outdated enemy positions, long-dead colonies, and ancient Earth fleet signals lit up the screen. He stared at the name Earth for a long time. Something deep inside him ached. What had happened to Earth? Why wasn't there any reply? Why had his mission been forgotten? He walked into the cryo chamber and looked at the frozen soldiers still locked in their pods. Dozens of them, still asleep, still waiting for the signal that never came. He didn't wake them up. Not yet. He had to be sure. The AI voice reported incoming ships. Jack turned quickly and saw more signals on the radar. Small ones, scouts, not dangerous on their own, but enough to raise alarm. He gave the command. Activate stealth mode. Prepare weapons. The ship began to disappear from sensors, blending into the dark of space. Even light bent around it. Commander Lyra's screen went blank. The Resolute had vanished. Her pilot gasped. It was impossible. The technology was beyond anything they had ever seen. Then the patrol ships arrived. 3 of them, lightly armed but fast. They had orders to monitor the area, not to engage. They flew past her and toward the moon. Lyra shouted over the comms, telling them to stop, warning them, begging them. But it was too late. Jack watched the patrol ships move closer. He assumed they were the enemy. Scouts coming to check on him before the main fleet arrived. He aimed carefully and fired one warning shot, a low-powered plasma bolt meant to miss. It hit near the patrol ship, making them turn quickly and retreat. But they sent out a panic signal. Now, the whole sector knew something was wrong. Galactic Command saw the alert and called an emergency meeting. Some believed it was an old rogue ship. Others feared it was a trap from a hidden enemy. Only a few council members remembered Earth, and even fewer believed one of their ships could still be active. They agreed to send a message to all nearby systems, stay away from the broken moon. But that didn't stop others from becoming curious. Jack watched it all from the Resolute. The Eye had hacked into nearby communication links. It was still learning, still adapting. But now it had access to modern signals. It played news clips, political broadcasts, and fleet orders from the last 2 decades. Jack sat in his chair, watching the screen. Slowly, he began to realize something. The war might be over. The names he heard knew leaders, peace talks, trade deals. They didn't match the galaxy he remembered. But doubt wasn't enough until he saw one message. It was a historical broadcast about the fall of the Zarn Empire. It showed surrender documents, videos of Zarn commanders shaking hands with alien diplomats. And one photo, it was a photo of a human ambassador, smiling, standing next to a Valari prince. Jack stared at it, lost in thought. The uniform was from Earth, but different, peaceful, formal, not built for war. He leaned back in his chair. For the first time since he woke up, he didn't feel sure of anything. He gave the order to power down the main weapons. Just for a moment, Lyra saw it from her ship. The energy spikes vanished. The lights dimmed. She sent one more message, plain and simple. "My name is Lyra. I want to talk." Jack saw it on the screen. He didn't answer, but he didn't fire either. Jack did not sleep. He sat in the command chair of the Resolute, staring at the stars through the wide glass screen. His mind was heavy, full of questions, full of doubt. The galaxy looked the same, but everything had changed. He remembered training with other soldiers, the final speech before launch, the cheers, the fear, the promise to protect Earth and defeat the Zarn Empire. Now all of that felt far away, like a story he once heard. The ship was quiet. The AI had lowered activity to match his mood. There was no threat near, no orders to follow, no battle to fight. Then, a soft light blinked on the console. Another message from the small alien ship. Jack looked at it but didn't open it. He just watched it blink, again and again. He asked the AI, "Who are they?" The AI showed a scan of the alien ship, small, fast, lightly armed. It had Zenter markings, an old name Jack barely remembered from the history files. Were they allies, enemies, traitors? He didn't know. He stood up and walked through the ship. Past the cryo chambers, past the silent crew, still asleep, past the armory and into the observation deck. Stars stretched all around him, so many, so cold. What had Earth become? Where were the colonies? Why did no one come to find them? Then he remembered something, the backup fleet. He rushed back to the command center and opened old mission logs. Before launch, Earth had created a small secret group of warships, designed to follow behind the main fleet in case of disaster. Jack accessed the fleet tracker. It was broken. Most signals were dead, but one signal, one very weak one, was still alive, buried deep in a nebula not far from his location. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he gave the order, set a course. The Resolute turned slowly, its engines humming with power. The cloak stayed active, keeping it hidden from nearby sensors. It left the broken moon behind and moved toward the unknown signal. Commander Lyra watched from her ship. Her screen showed nothing. The massive vessel had vanished again. She felt frustrated, but not surprised. It was clear now that this human was following some mission. Something old, something dangerous. She contacted the Galactic Council again, reporting the movement. Some wanted to send more fleets. Some wanted to destroy the ship immediately. But Lyra spoke calmly, asking for more time, more patience, against loud voices and fear. She won one more chance. Jack traveled in silence. The eye updated him slowly. The signal grew stronger. The nebula ahead glowed blue and green, swirling with dust and light. Hours passed. Finally, the ship reached the edge of the nebula, and Jack found them. 5 old Earth warships floating in silence. Their lights were dim, their hulls covered in dust and scars, but they were real survivors. Just like the Resolute, he sent out a command code, ancient and hidden, one by one. The ships responded. Their systems woke up, weapons clicked online, engines roared weakly. Eyes spoke in static-filled voices, but they recognized him. Jack smiled for the first time since he woke up. He was not alone. He docked with the nearest ship, the Falcon Ray, and stepped aboard. The halls were cold and empty, but the I greeted him, Captain Rayner. Mission status: incomplete. He walked the halls, checked systems, and read damage reports. These ships had been hiding for decades, waiting, surviving. Their crews had died in cryo, or the systems had failed, but the ships had remained. He returned to the Resolute and called the I. "Can we fix them?" it replied, slowly, so Jack began working. Used repair drones, power transfers, and old blueprints, piece by piece. He brought the ships back to life. 3 days later, 4 out of 5 ships were moving, weapons active, systems online. Jack stood on the Resolute's bridge, watching the Ghost Fleet follow him through space. Each ship had its own AI, and each one remembered the mission. To them, the war was still active, the enemy still alive. Jack hesitated. He knew now that things had changed, but part of him still felt the old duty, the mission, the promise to Earth. What was Earth now? Was it still worth protecting, or had it forgotten them? Lyra received a new signal from deep in the nebula. 5 old warships moving in formation. Her crew stared at the data in shock. These were Earth ships, all of them, and they were fully armed. She sent the message to the Council. They panicked. Some demanded immediate attack. Others feared what would happen if they fired first. Lyra made her choice. She followed. Her ship, the Starblade, moved quietly into the nebula. She activated full translation mode, sent human language messages, and turned off her weapons. Jack noticed her approach. The eye asked, "Engage or ignore?" He paused. "Ignore." The Ghost Fleet continued, silent and cold. Jack looked at the fleet map. His eyes locked on an old Earth beacon, a place once called Station Haven. It had been a forward base, strong and hidden. If it still existed, it might have answers. He set the course again. As the Ghost Fleet turned toward Station Haven, Lyra followed from a distance. In her heart, she knew this human was not a monster, but she also knew if someone didn't reach him soon, the galaxy might burn again. The Ghost Fleet moved like shadows through the nebula. The engines were silent, the ships dark except for small blinking lights. Each one was a piece of forgotten history, powerful and angry, and ready to obey any order from Jack Rayner. Jack sat in the captain's chair, watching the star map. The old coordinates for Station Haven were still in the system, but they were marked as inactive. He didn't care if there was even a chance someone from Earth had left a message or clue there. He had to check. The ships drifted out of the nebula and into clear space. Their dark metal hulls reflected starlight, and their massive cannons glowed faintly as they charged power slowly. They looked like a fleet from another time, dangerous and out of place. Jack ordered the A.I.s to stay quiet. He didn't want to start a war, not yet, but if they were attacked first, he would not hesitate to strike back. Far behind him, Lyra watched from the Starblade. She kept her distance, careful not to make the fleet nervous. She knew these ships could destroy a battle group in minutes. She sent another message, this time using a human voice translator. Her message was simple. "If you can hear me, please listen. The war is over. I don't want to fight." No reply came. The Ghost Fleet reached Station Haven's last known location, but when they arrived, they found nothing. No station, just empty space, filled with broken metal, frozen parts, and the remains of something massive. Jack's face was calm, but his heart felt heavy. He ordered a scan. The AI showed what had happened. Long ago, someone had attacked the station. It had been destroyed completely, not in a battle, but more like a clean sweep, like someone wanted to erase it. He looked at a cracked Earth flag floating near a frozen beam. His fists tightened. The AI suggested leaving, but Jack wasn't ready. He sent drones to search every part of the debris field. One of the drones found something, a black box, buried under twisted metal. Jack brought it aboard and connected it to the Resolute. It was an old Earth recording, dusty and full of static, but it worked. A man's voice came through. "This is Commander Drew Langley of Station Haven. If anyone finds this, Earth is gone. The Council left us. The last orders were to hide or burn everything. They didn't want anyone to know." The recording glitched, then continued. "They said Earth was too dangerous. They said we caused too many wars. Now they want to forget we existed." The message ended. Jack sat still for a long time. He turned off the screen and closed his eyes. So this was it. Earth had not been destroyed by enemies. It had been erased by friends. Lyra saw the Ghost Fleet slow down. Her sensors showed no weapons active. She felt this was her only chance. She moved the Starblade closer and sent a new message. "Please, I know you feel lost, but not everyone wants to erase you." Jack looked at the message. For the first time, he opened a communication window. Lyra appeared on his screen, calm, focused. Her eyes searched his. "You're human," she said softly. "Yes," Jack replied. "I've been looking for you." Lyra said, "You're not alone." Jack stared at her, trying to find a trick or a lie in her voice. But she seemed honest. Why, he asked. "Because you deserve to know the truth," she said. "And because we need you." Jack didn't speak for a while. He finally said, "Earth is gone." Lyra nodded. "Yes, but not forgotten." She told him how some in the galaxy feared humans because of their old power, but others admired their bravery. She explained that pirates had grown stronger again, that peace was only on paper, and that people were suffering on the edge worlds. Jack listened. "Your fleet could help protect them," she said, "not as a weapon of war, but as a shield." Jack looked at the ghost ships outside. All those weapons, all that power. He thought about waking up his crew, leading them into another war. Then he looked at Lyra. "Let's talk more." Lyra smiled. For the first time she felt hope. The ghost fleet held position. Their lights dimmed slightly, waiting for a new command. Jack had a choice to make. He could finish the mission, a mission from a dead world, or he could start something new, something that gave the ghost fleet a reason to exist again, a reason that didn't include more death. As the two ships floated side by side in the dark, the galaxy quietly shifted, because history was not finished with humans, not yet. The ghost fleet floated in silence. Their massive bodies blocked out the stars, waiting for orders from Jack Rayner. But Jack was no longer thinking like a soldier. He sat at the meeting table aboard the Resolute, across from Commander Lyra, her image glowing faintly on the screen. The call between them stayed open for hours. They didn't shout, didn't argue. They simply talked. Jack asked about the present galaxy, about Earth, about the new rules. Lyra answered honestly, telling him about the peace, the corruption, and the pain hiding behind bright banners. Some systems were safe, well-fed, full of light, but others, especially the outer worlds, were left behind. Pirates raided freely, smugglers ruled trade lanes, and rich houses ignored cries for help. Jack leaned back in his chair, looking at the map slowly updating on his screen. The galaxy had changed, but maybe not as much as he had hoped. The mission had ended, but the need to protect people had not. He stood and walked to the control panel. One by one, he opened the channels to each of the ghost ships. Their eyes greeted him, still waiting, still loyal. "We have a new mission," Jack said. "No more blind war, no more revenge. We protect." Each ship responded with a simple word: "Understood." Jack felt the weight on his chest lift, just a little. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the council was in chaos. The news of an awakened human fleet was spreading fast. Some demanded war, others demanded peace, but none could ignore the power of those ships. The leaders argued for hours, but in the end, fear won. They activated the Leviathan Armada, the largest fleet ever built after the Great War. It had over 500 warships, each one strong enough to hold a planet in check. Their mission was simple: find the human fleet and destroy it. Lyra heard the order, and her heart dropped. She knew what would happen if those two forces met. It wouldn't be a battle. It would be a massacre. She rushed to warn Jack. Her ship flew at top speed through the old lanes, sending message after message. Jack got the warning as he finished repairs on the Falcon Ray. His face didn't show fear, just disappointment. They didn't even ask. He turned to his AI, ready the fleet, not for war, but for survival. The ghost fleet activated at once. Their lights brightened. Their systems came alive. They formed a wall of steel and fire. Jack gave an order: "Cloak all ships, hide in the void." The ghost fleet vanished. The Leviathan Armada arrived at Station Haven's ruins only hours later. Their ships spread out, scanning every direction, but they saw nothing. No enemy, only broken metal. Jack watched from a distance, hidden behind a gas giant. He didn't fire, didn't move, just listened. Then the Armada made a mistake. One of their captains launched a warning missile into the debris. It exploded too close to one of the old signal buoys Jack had repaired. The AI on board sent an emergency response. The Resolute saw it. Jack had given orders not to attack unless attacked directly. But the Falcon Ray's I did not wait. It was older, more aggressive. It decloaked and fired a gravity shell. 5 Leviathan ships vanished in a flash. The Armada panicked. Ships scattered, orders clashed, and captains shouted over each other. Jack immediately called the Falcon Ray and ordered it to power down. But it was too late. The galaxy now believed the humans had struck first. Lyra arrived at the edge of the battlefield just as the second wave began. More Leviathan ships opened fire at random into empty space. Hoping to hit something, Jack made his move. He decloaked only the Resolute. All weapons were off, lights steady. Shields up but passive. He opened a wide communication signal. "This is Captain Jack Rayner of Earth. I do not want war. But if you fire again, I will finish it." The Leviathan Armada froze. The voice was calm, steady, human. Many of the younger officers had only heard stories of humans, of their weapons, their stubbornness, their victories. Now they heard one speak. Leader of the Armada, Admiral Kor, replied sharply. "We have orders to destroy you," Jack answered. "Then I suggest you tell your council to write new orders." Behind him, the Ghost Fleet slowly decloaked. One ship at a time, the stars disappeared behind their bodies. Kor's screen showed the full size of the fleet, their weapons, their perfect formation, their calm. He had never seen such discipline, not even in his own armada. He gave no command. For 1 full minute, no one moved. Then Lyra's voice came through the signal. "He's telling the truth. He hasn't attacked anyone. Not until you did," Jack added. "I came to protect, not to conquer." Kor looked at the screen, at the ships, at Lyra, at his own frightened crew. He gave the retreat signal. The Armada slowly pulled back. Jack powered down the Resolute's weapons. Lyra closed her eyes and sighed in relief. The battle had ended before it could begin. But now the entire galaxy knew humanity was back. And they brought more than just fire. They brought control. The Ghost Fleet remained still after the Leviathan Armada pulled back. Their weapons were powered down, but they stayed in formation, ready, calm, unshaken. In the center, the Resolute stood like a pillar of history, a reminder of what humanity had once been. Jack Rayner sat alone in the command chair, the light from the screen glowing across his tired face. The galaxy had seen his fleet, and now it would decide what to do. Council called an emergency meeting. Some leaders demanded more fleets to crush the humans. Others said fighting would be foolish. They had all seen what a single human fleet could do. They had all seen the calm confidence in Jack's eyes. In the end, fear became silence. No new orders were given. Jack didn't move his ships. He kept them close, patrolling the edges of the outer colonies, where pirates were strong and local security was weak. He gave his fleet one rule: protect the innocent, respond to distress calls, and do not fire unless fired upon. The Ghost Fleet began to change its image. At first, people ran when they saw the ships, but soon, the outer worlds began to trust them. One day, a mining colony under attack by raiders sent a message. They never expected an answer, but the Falcon Ray arrived within the hour. It didn't speak. It didn't threaten. It just fired one shot and ended the fight. The colony sent back a message: "Thank you, human." Jack read the message in silence, then nodded. Lyra returned to the council to speak for Jack. She told them he was not a threat, but a solution. She showed reports from colonies that had been saved by the Ghost Fleet. The council still hesitated, but slowly, support grew. A few border systems began requesting help from Jack directly. One by one, they asked for protection, not from enemies, but from their own failing system. Jack didn't claim land, didn't take power. He just sent ships, rescued people, and left. The council grew nervous, afraid of his influence. But they couldn't deny his results. Peace followed wherever the Ghost Fleet appeared. One day, Jack stood on the bridge and looked at a strange signal. It was not a distress call, not a council message. It was old, from Earth, buried deep in the memory core, a personal message. It was from his daughter. Jack's hands shook as he opened it. The recording was broken, But the voice was there, soft and strong. "Hi, Dad, if you're hearing this, it means you're still out there. We don't know what happened to the fleet. But I never gave up hope. Earth isn't safe anymore. They erased us from history, but I want you to know. I'm proud of you. Don't let them turn you into a ghost." Jack closed his eyes. The war had taken so much, but it hadn't taken everything. It hadn't taken her memory. He turned to the AI, "Save the message." The AI responded, "Saved." Later that day, Lyra returned aboard the Starblade. She met Jack in person for the first time. He looked older than she expected, stronger too, but quiet. They walked the halls of the Resolute together. She saw old marks from past battles, names of fallen soldiers etched into the walls. It was a ship built not just for war, but for honor. They sat in the war room. "What now?" she asked. Jack stared at the map. "So many worlds, so much need. We keep going," he said. "We show them who we really are." Lyra nodded. "But it won't be easy." Jack smiled faintly. "Nothing worth doing ever is." In the months that followed, the Ghost Fleet became something new. They were called Guardians by the outer colonies, Silent Knights by the traders, and Peacekeepers by those who had once feared them. Jack never asked for praise. He never gave speeches. He let the fleet speak with actions, one system at a time. They brought peace. They brought protection. They brought hope. And through it all, Jack held on to that message, that voice, that reminder that he was not just a soldier, he was still human, and humanity had returned not with fire, but with purpose. The Ghost Fleet continued its silent patrol, moving from system to system like watchers in the dark. Jack Rayner stood at the front of the Resolute, hands behind his back, watching the stars pass by. He had become something strange in the eyes of the galaxy, not a hero, not a conqueror, not a king, just a man with ships who did what others wouldn't. More and more colonies sent quiet messages, not always asking for protection, sometimes just asking for advice, for help building defense towers, or for food convoys to be protected from raiders. Jack helped where he could, never asking for anything in return. One day, a large colony named Darvin Prime came under attack, not by pirates, but by a private army hired by a corrupt trade family. The local police force surrendered without firing a shot, and civilians were taken hostage. Jack received the call. He didn't ask for permission. The Ghost Fleet arrived in silence, like a storm waiting to happen. The Falcon Ray flew low over the city, breaking the sound barrier and shattering enemy comms. Jack sent a message to the enemy commander, "Release the civilians and leave." The commander laughed, thinking it was a trick. He sent back a threat, "If you fire, we'll use the hostages as shields." Jack's voice was cold. "If you harm one of them, you won't even have time to scream." The Ghost Fleet moved into position. One of the human ships, the Night Star, activated its target locks, pinpointing every hostile base within seconds. The enemy army panicked. They tried to flee, but their ships were disabled by electromagnetic bursts. The Falcon Ray opened its side ports and dropped shock drones into the city. The drones did not kill. They knocked out weapons, shields, and communications. Within hours, Darvin Prime was free. The people stood in the streets, looking up at the sky as the dark ships hovered above them. They started cheering. For the first time, someone had saved them, not for money, not for power, but simply because it was right. The story of Darvin Prime spread fast, not just through the outer systems, but deep into the core worlds. People began questioning the Council. Why did it take ghosts from the past to fix the present? Lyra sat in the Council Hall, watching the leaders argue again. Some demanded that Jack be removed. Others wanted to work with him. She stood and spoke. "You had your chance. You chose silence. He chose action." The room went quiet. The Council could not deny the results. Jack had not started a war. He had ended suffering. They voted to send a diplomatic team, not to control Jack, but to learn from him. Jack met them aboard the Resolute. They expected a grand ceremony. Instead, he gave them simple seats, warm food, and open eyes. He told them the truth. He didn't want power. didn't want fame. He only wanted to protect those who had no one else. The diplomats listened, and for once, they understood. Weeks later, the council made a new decision. They would form a peace division, not made of politics, but of protectors. And they asked Jack to lead it. He refused, but he offered something better. Let me train them. Let me teach them what Earth taught me. And so the training began from all across the galaxy. Brave souls arrived, young pilots, engineers, soldiers, and even former pirates who wanted to change. Jack taught them discipline, strength, and purpose. He did not teach them to fight, he taught them to choose when not to. The Ghost Fleet became their guide, their base, their shield. The galaxy had changed. But it was not the weapons that changed it. It was a man who had woken up from a forgotten time and chose a better path. Jack stood once more at the front of the Resolute, watching the stars. Beside him stood Lyra, no longer just a commander, but a friend. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The stars stretched before them and behind them. A galaxy slowly learning how to stand again, not from fear, but from example, because sometimes all it takes is one man to remind the galaxy what strength really means. And Jack Raynor was that man. Years passed, but the Ghost Fleet still watched over the stars, not as ghosts of war, but as guardians of peace. Jack Raynor became a name known across the galaxy, not as a soldier of destruction, but as a protector who never asked for anything. The galaxy had changed, not quickly, not loudly, but one system at a time. Outer colonies were no longer ignored. Small planets once forgotten now had defense lines, food stations, and safe space. To grow, people had stopped fearing the sight of dark metal ships in orbit. Now they smiled, knowing that help had arrived. Jack stayed aboard the Resolute. He didn't want awards, didn't want statues. He walked the same metal halls each day, quietly checking systems, listening to reports, and teaching new Peace Division recruits. Many of the young trainees had never seen war. They were born in peace. But they came to learn from the man who had known the worst and still chose the best. Lyra often joined him, not as a council voice, but as a partner in the work. They didn't always agree, but they always listened to each other. One evening, Jack sat in the observation room, staring at a single blue planet on the screen. It wasn't Earth, but it reminded him of home. A trainee approached him with a message. "Captain, there's a signal from the Galactic Council. They're asking for your opinion on a new law." Jack smiled gently. "Tell them to ask the people who live under that law first." The trainee nodded, then stopped. "Sir, do you think Earth will ever return?" Jack looked at the stars. Maybe it already has. He walked through the halls and past the cryo chambers. Only a few remained asleep now. Some were too damaged to wake. Others had already joined him in the new mission. Some had died without ever opening their eyes. He paused to place his hand on one pod. "Thank you," he whispered. Outside the ship, the fleet floated peacefully. The Falcon Ray was now fully restored and led patrols in the border systems. The Night Star worked closely with rescue ships, guiding them through dangerous zones. The galaxy had not become perfect. There were still criminals, still greedy factions, and still old hatreds buried deep. But now there was balance. People knew that someone was watching. Not to rule them, but to protect them. A new generation was rising, taught by stories of Jack Raynor and the forgotten Earth fleet that returned not to take, but to give. In the council hall, his name was still debated. Some feared him, others wanted to use him, but most respected him. They knew that if they made a mistake, the Resolute would arrive one day. A small ship appeared near the outer edge of the system. Its engines were broken, its crew injured. They had run from slavers and escaped by chance. They sent out a distress call. They did not expect an answer, but they got one. The Ghost Fleet appeared in the dark. No grand speech, no warning, just safety. The crew cried when they saw the emblem on the side of the ship, a simple Earth flag, still shining. Jack never spoke to them directly. He didn't need to. The message had already been sent. Later that week, Lyra joined him in the command room. "You've done it," she said. He shook his head. "No, they did it. All those people who chose peace, who asked for help and gave it back to others." She smiled. "Still, you gave them the start." Jack looked at the star map. So many names, so many lights, maybe. A young girl entered the room. She was a trainee, shy, bright-eyed, with a badge shaped like Earth's old star symbol. She saluted. "Captain Rayner, we finished repairs on the Artemis." "It's ready for launch." Jack nodded. "Good work. Get some rest." The girl smiled and left. Lyra looked at him. "What now?" Jack stared at the stars. "Now we let them lead." He walked to the main panel and switched off the fleet-wide command override. From now on, each captain would command their ship without needing his voice. It was time. He had brought them out of the past, but the future belonged to them. Jack returned to his quarters that night and sat beside the old message from his daughter. He played it one last time. "Hi, Dad. If you're hearing this, it means you're still out there." He closed his eyes. "Yes, I'm still here, outside." The galaxy moved forward, guided by the silent ships. Ships that once were forgotten, but were now symbols of hope. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget it.